Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to say, I've been with this material for, the last day?
At least.
And my head is still just spinning.
It's a heavy stack of papers, isn't it? It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot, and it's not the usual. We dig into something, and you come away with a neat little fact for a dinner party.
Right, a little piece two trivia.
This feels more like a warning.
I think that's the right word for it, because we are trying to connect two things that on the surface should not be in the same universe.
Not at all.
You've got the grim gray world of George Orwell's 1984.
Required high school reading, yeah.
Exactly. And then you have I don't know what to call it, the bizarre, neon-lit, grotesque mystery of Jeffrey Epstein.
It's such a jarring combination. You just don't see classic dystopian literature and international intelligence-linked sex trafficking in the same thought.
You don't. But the source material we're digging into today, which is mainly from the Dark Horse podcast with Brett Weinstein and Heather Hang, it argues they aren't just related.
What, that they're the same story?
In a way, yeah. They argue that they're both fundamentally stories about the manipulation of reality, about who gets to decide what's true.
Okay, so let's lay out the roadmap for everyone listening, because this is a twisty one. We're essentially looking at this through two main lenses, or pillars as you call them.
Right, two pillars. Pillar one is what the source calls the Orwellian landscape.
And this isn't just like politicians spinning things.
No, it's deeper. We're talking about how language itself, the English language, is being degraded, how words are being twisted in real time in major news outlets to the point where they stop us from being able to think clearly about what's happening.
So we're going to get into something called Newspeak, a Nobel Prize nomination that I promise you will make your jaw drop.
It really will.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at why, according to the source, Wikipedia might be one of the most dangerous tools for narrative control on the planet right now.
Which is a huge claim.
A huge claim.
And then, that's pillar one. Pillar two, we take that same skeptical lens.
That same question of, is the official story real?
And we apply it to the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And I want to be really clear with everyone listening. We are not here to rehash the scandal or do the gossip thing.
No, we're looking at specific, weird, forensic evidence, invoices for hundreds of gallons of sulfuric acid, wiped FBI hard drives, really strange emails. And we're going to unpack a game theoretic argument that Jeffrey Epstein might still be alive.
Okay, you can't just drop that and move on. That is the ultimate tinfoil hat theory, isn't it?
It sounds like it, but the way they build the case is, it's all logic. It's not about conspiracy, it's about incentives. But before we get there, there's one core idea we need to keep in our minds through this whole discussion.
And what's that?
The source calls it predator inspection.
Predator inspection. Sounds intense.
Slapped.
It's the biology concept, right? Our sources are biologists.
Exactly. And it's fascinating. Think about it from an animal's perspective. You're a gazelle on the savannah. You see a cheetah in the distance. What do?
You run. You run as fast as you can in the opposite direction.
That's what you'd think. And a lot of them do. But often, the strongest, healthiest gazelles will actually stop, turn, and sometimes take a few steps toward the cheetah.
Wait, what? Why on earth would you walk toward the thing that is designed to kill and eat you? That seems insane.
Because information is survival. You need to inspect the threat. You need to know, is this cheetah actually hunting? Or is it just walking to the water hole? Is it old? Is it injured? Does it see me?
So if you just run blindly, you might be wasting energy you desperately need.
Or you might run straight into a second cheetah that you didn't see. You have to look at the monster to understand how to survive it. You have to gather the data.
And the argument from the source is that we, as a society, are being told not to do that.
We're being told the opposite. We're being told, don't look at the pattern, don't ask questions. To do so is dangerous or bigoted or misinformation. The source says no. To survive, you must look. You must practice predator inspection.
So,
yeah,
let's start inspecting. Let's dive into that first pillar, the Orwellian lens and the death of language. Yeah. The whole thing kicks off with a passage from 1984. And it's not just a random quote, it's a specific scene where the character Syme is explaining Newspeak to Winston, the protagonist.
And Syme he's a chilling character because he's so cheerful about what he's doing.
Right. He's a language expert, a philologist, and his job is to work on the new dictionary.
The 11th edition of the Newspeak dictionary. And he explains that the whole point of this project isn't to add new words, to describe the world more accurately. The point is to destroy words.
He literally says they are cutting the language down to the bone.
Down to the bone. Because the goal, he says, is to narrow the range of thought. And the logic, I mean, it's brutal, but it's sound.
How so?
If you can eliminate the words for a concept, you can eventually eliminate the concept itself. If there is no word for freedom, how can you even think about wanting it? You might feel a vague unease, but you can't articulate it. You can't share the idea.
So thought crime, central crime in the book, becomes literally impossible.
Exactly. Because you don't have the tools, the vocabulary to commit it. It's like trying to do calculus without the number 0. It's a mental lobotomy performed through a dictionary.
There was this one line that they read that just, it sent a chill down my spine. Syme says to Winston, "Has it ever occurred to you that by the year 2050, at the very latest, not a single human being will be alive who could understand such a conversation as we are having now?"
It's so profound. He's not just talking about vocabulary. He's talking about severing the connection to the past.
To reality.
To reality itself. If we lose the words, we lose the history. We lose the ability to understand our ancestors, their ideas, their warnings. And the source's central argument is that this isn't fiction from 1949. This is happening right now in our world.
And they bring up a very specific, very recent example to prove it. It involves The Nation magazine.
Right. And for those who don't know, The Nation is a very old, very established magazine on the American left. It has a lot of intellectual weight.
It's not some fringe blog.
No, not at all. And they put forward a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay, for who?
For the city of Minneapolis.
The city of Minneapolis. For a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
Okay, let's unpack that for a second. Because when most of us think about Minneapolis in the specific time frame they're talking about, the word peace is not the first thing that comes to mind.
Not even in the top 10.
I'm thinking of the 3rd Precinct police station burning to the ground. I'm thinking of widespread riots, looting, the National Guard being called in. That's the imagery.
That is the imagery, and that is exactly where the Orwellian flip, as the source calls it, comes in. This is a direct, real-world application of a party slogan from 1984. War is peace.
So how are they justifying this? What's the language they use?
The nomination praises Minneapolis for acts of courage and solidarity. Okay, fine. But then it specifically commends the city for its nonviolent resistance.
Nonviolent resistance.
They are taking events that involved arson, destruction of billions of dollars of property, physical clashes, objectively violent events, and they are putting the label nonviolent on them.
It's just gaslighting on an international scale. It's telling millions of people that the thing you saw with your own 2 eyes on video didn't happen that way.
It's more insidious than just a lie, though. It's a redefinition. The analysis in the source points out that by doing this, the nomination is taking a very strong political stance on things like open borders and the role of law enforcement.
But they're hiding it.
They're cloaking it under the universally positive, untouchable banner of peace. Because who can argue against peace?
Right. If you object to this nomination, you're not arguing about the facts on the ground. You're made to look like you're anti-peace.
Exactly. You've been put in a rhetorical trap. And once you accept that violence can be called peace, the words don't mean anything anymore. The language is broken. It reminds me of that scene in 1984, during Hate Week.
Yeah, where the speaker is on stage.
He's on stage, whipping the crowd into a frenzy against their mortal enemy, Eurasia. And then, mid-sentence, a messenger hands him a note. And without missing a beat, he announces that Oceania is, and has always been, at war with Eastasia. Eurasia is their ally.
And the crowd just switches. Instantly. They start tearing down the anti-Eurasia posters and blaming it on saboteurs.
That's the mechanism. Yeah. That's the goal. If you control the definitions and you repeat the new definition often enough, history gets rewritten in real time. Which, speaking of rewriting things, brings us to the next example from the source. Wikipedia.
This part really got me because, come on, who doesn't use Wikipedia? It's the first stop for everything. It's become the default source of truth for the internet.
It is the baseline reality for millions, maybe billions of people, and the source points to an article in Nature magazine.
And Nature is like the premier international journal of science. It's a huge deal.
A very big deal. And Nature is celebrating Wikipedia's 25th anniversary. They call it an antidote to our poisoned information ecosystem.
Which sounds great. We all want an antidote to misinformation and propaganda.
We do. But the source points out this huge, glaring contradiction in Nature's own article. The piece praises Wikipedia for its core policy of maintaining a neutral point of view.
Okay, that's their whole brand.
Yeah.
Neutrality.
Right. But then, in the very same article, Nature admits that for entries on contentious topics, and they use climate change as the example, Wikipedia's policy is to explicitly label any opposing viewpoints as misinformation.
Wait a minute. So how
Yes.
can you be neutral while also deciding in advance which side is misinformation? That's the opposite of neutral.
That is the entire critique. The source argues that Wikipedia has become what's known as a captured institution. It is no longer a neutral repository of facts where you go to learn and make up your own mind.
So what is it then?
The argument is that the truth on Wikipedia now functions as a loss leader.
A loss leader. Like in a supermarket when they sell milk really cheap.
Exactly like that. You know how the store will sell milk or eggs at a loss just to get you in the door? Because they know once you're inside, you'll buy the other, more profitable stuff.
Sure, makes sense.
Wikipedia does the same thing with information. It offers you perfectly accurate, wonderfully detailed, neutral articles on the boiling point of water, or the history of the Roman Empire, or the life cycle of a star.
Stuff nobody argues about.
Right. And those articles are generally excellent, so you come to trust the platform. You think, wow, this site is amazing, it's so reliable. That's the cheap milk. It gets you in the door.
And then, once they have your trust, you wander into the aisles with, say, politics or social issues.
And you swallow the narrative presented there without question, because you trust the source. The source argues that Nature praising this as neutrality is another Orwellian inversion. It's defining neutrality not as impartiality, but as adherence to the approved narrative.
That's deeply disturbing. Because if Wikipedia is captured, then the foundation of online reality is managed. It's curated.
And this degradation of meaning goes even deeper than just spin. It goes to the very structure of the words we use. The source brings up an essay by Orwell himself from 1946 called Politics and the English Language.
I loved this part.
Yeah.
This was so clear. They walked through an experiment that Orwell did in that essay. He took a famous verse from the Bible and translated it into modern English.
It is a brilliant, brilliant demonstration of how language can rot from the inside out. So he takes a verse from Ecclesiastes, and the original is beautiful, it's vivid, it's concrete, it uses words you can picture.
I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, but time and chance happeneth to them all.
See? You can picture it. A race, a battle, a loaf of bread. These are real things. They create an image, a feeling in your mind.
It's powerful.
Now, listen to how Orwell translates that same idea into what he called modern English, which is basically the bureaucratic academic jargon we're all swimming in now.
Okay, I'm ready.
Objective consideration of contemporary phenomena compels the conclusion that success or failure in competitive activities exhibits no tendency to be commensurate with innate capacity, but that a considerable element of the unpredictable must invariably be taken into account.
Stop. My brain hurts. It sounds like a press release from a committee that's trying to get out of a meeting.
Right. It's horrible. Success or failure in competitive activities. What does that even mean? It's vague, it's full of Latin-derived words, it's abstract.
It's boring, and it's confusing.
It's boring and confusing on purpose. The source argues that this kind of language, which is now dominant in academia, in science, and government, is a tool for cloaking.
Cloaking what, exactly?
Meaning and accountability. When you say battle, everyone knows what you mean. It's a concrete reality. When you say competitive activities, you could mean anything from war to a bake-off. The vagueness allows you to hide weak arguments. It makes it harder for the listener to form a clear picture of reality, which in turn makes it harder for them to criticize what you're saying.
It's like a smoke bomb made of syllables. You just throw it out there to obscure everything.
That's a perfect way to put it. And that is the Orwellian landscape they're describing. You have media that redefines peace, an encyclopedia that redefines neutrality, and an academic language that's designed to hide meaning. And all of this sets the stage for our next section, where we apply that predator inspection to a very real, very tragic event.
Okay, let's move into section 2. We are looking at a school shooting that took place in Western Canada. The source dates this around early 2026.
And this is obviously a very heavy topic, and we need to be careful with it, but we have to look at how the official reporting, according to the source, distorted the reality of what happened.
So what was the initial story? How was it reported?
The initial reports from major outlets like Reuters and from the police themselves described the shooter as female and as a woman.
Okay, seems straightforward. But the source is asserting that that's not the full picture.
That's not the full picture at all. The source states that the shooter was a trans-identified male, a biological male who identified as female. and that this individual had a known history of severe mental instability, drug use, they mentioned mushrooms, possibly DMT, and was also on prescribed SSRIs.
And none of that context was in the headlines. They just said woman.
Correct. And the source argues that this is a perfect and very dangerous example of what happens when ideology is prioritized over biological reality, especially in a criminal investigation.
And they point to the bizarre language that came out of this.
Oh, yes. The authorities, in their press conferences, were clearly terrified of misgendering a mass murderer, so they couldn't bring themselves to say gunman because that would go against the shooter's identity.
But they also couldn't say gunwoman because that creates a conflict with the biological reality that people might find out about later.
Right, so they got tied in these linguistic knots and ended up with the term gun person.
Gun person.
Gun person.
It sounds like something from a bad sci-fi movie, like an alien trying to describe a human. There was a gun person at the scene.
It's completely absurd, but the source makes a really sharp point here. This attempt to hide the truth with awkward language actually backfires. It's a version of the Streisand effect.
Yeah.
When the public hears a clumsy, unnatural phrase like gun person, their antennae go up. They immediately, intuitively know that the story is being managed, and they deduce that the shooter must be a trans-identified male.
Because that's the only context where you would need to invent such a tortured term.
It's the only one, so that the language itself becomes a signal for the very thing they are trying to obscure. But let's bring this back to the core concept, predator inspection. Why does the source insist that this distinction, biological male versus female, is so critical? Why not just say a tragedy occurred and leave it at that?
Right. A life was lost. Why does the label of the perpetrator matter so much?
Because patterns matter. In nature, if you don't recognize the pattern of the predator hunting you, you die. The source posits that there is an observable, statistically significant pattern emerging, one that connects trans-identified males, SSRI use, mental instability, and acts of mass violence.
And the argument is that this pattern is being deliberately hidden from the public.
Explicitly. The source argues that by mislabeling the shooter as female, the authorities and the press are, whether intentionally or not, covering for pharma and obscuring a potentially lethal pattern.
How does that work? How's it a cover?
If the public is told a woman committed this crime, they start looking for a certain set of causes. Maybe a history of abuse, a domestic dispute, postpartum issues, things typically associated with female violence. If they're told a biological male on a cocktail of psychoactive drugs did it, they start asking a completely different and perhaps more accurate set of questions.
So it's about our right, as the public, to pattern recognition, to see the predator for what it is so we can protect ourselves.
That's the argument. The analysis in the source goes so far as to call this journalistic and police malpractice. They pose the question, if they are willing to lie to you about something as fundamental and observable as biological sex in a murder investigation, what else are they lying about?
It just destroys trust. Completely.
It evaporates it. And it connects right back to the Orwellian theme. If they can tell you a man is a woman in a police report, then telling you war is peace isn't really that much of a stretch anymore.
Right. The foundation of objective reality is already cracked.
And this deep distrust, this feeling that the official narrative is always a limited hangout or an outright distortion, leads us directly into the second and even darker pillar of this deep dive.
If we can't trust the reporting on a school shooting, how can we possibly trust the reporting on the most high-profile, high-stakes prisoner death of the century?
We can't.
Okay, Section 3. The Epstein deep dive. We've all been inundated with the Epstein story for years. The files, the names, but the source we're looking at argues that what we've seen is just the tip of the iceberg.
And a very carefully curated tip at that. The term they use repeatedly is limited hangout.
That's a term from the world of espionage, right?
It is. A limited hangout is when an intelligence agency, for example, knows a secret is about to break. So, to control the damage, they hang out a limited, less damaging version of the truth themselves. It satisfies public curiosity and makes them look transparent, all while protecting the much deeper, more dangerous secrets.
So the argument is that the Epstein document dump was that. A limited hangout.
That's the theory. We got some of the files, we got some names, but we almost certainly did not get the file.
The master leverage. The core blackmail material.
The real stuff. And the source applies game theory to the documents we did get, specifically the redactions, the black bars over names. They argue those black bars aren't just protecting people, they're a weapon.
How can a redaction be a weapon?
It functions as a shot across the bow, a warning. Imagine you're a powerful person, a senator, a CEO, a member of a royal family. You know you're on Epstein's jet. You know your name is in those files.
And you're terrified.
You're terrified. Then the documents are released. You frantically search for your name and you find it, but it's covered by a black bar.
The relief must be incredible.
For about 5 seconds. And then the chilling realization sinks in. The redaction is a message. It says, "We have your name. We know what you did. We haven't released it yet, but we own you now."
So the blackmail operation didn't die with Epstein. It was just transferred.
It may have become even more powerful because now it's controlled by an unknown entity, and the threat of release is constant. It's a silent coup, in a way. But let's get into the specific physical anomalies the source found in the files, because this stuff is just bizarre.
Let's start with the sulfuric acid. This one, I had never heard this detail before.
It's one of the strangest and most damning pieces of evidence. The source points to an invoice, and it shows that on the exact same day that the FBI opened a child sex trafficking investigation into Jeffrey Epstein in 2018.
On that very day?
On that very day, an emergency order was placed from Epstein's office. He ordered 6 55-gallon drums of industrial-grade sulfuric acid.
6 drums. That's 330 gallons of acid to be delivered to his private island in the Caribbean.
The timing is it's impossible to ignore. Now, to his credit, the source, Bret Weinstein, didn't just speculate. He decided to check the innocent explanation.
Which is what? What's the innocent reason to have 330 gallons of acid on a tropical island?
The plausible-sounding reason is that you need it for the desalination plant, for the reverse osmosis water purification system. To clean the pipes.
Okay, that sounds reasonable on the surface.
It does.
Yeah.
So Weinstein used AI to check the industrial engineering specs for reverse osmosis systems of that size. And the answer he got back was essentially no. You might need a tiny amount for balancing the pH levels, but you would never, ever need 330 gallons. The math just doesn't work.
So, if it wasn't for the water system, what does a man who just found out he's under federal investigation for sex trafficking need that much acid for in a hurry?
Well, the dark implication is obvious, isn't it? It's for the destruction of evidence. While it might not be the absolute #1 choice for a movie, villain hydrofluoric acid is better. Sulfuric acid is more than capable of dissolving biological matter. DNA, bone, tissue. It would also destroy hard drives, servers, anything with information on it.
It suggests a massive, panicked cleanup operation.
A frantic effort to erase something. Or someone's. Okay, so that's anomaly #1. Anomaly #2 involves a piece of art, and this one is just grotesque.
I remember this detail. It was an email.
An email about a painting. The painting is titled The Massacre of the Innocents, and Epstein wanted it shipped via FedEx to his ranch in New Mexico.
The Zorro Ranch, right?
And in the email, the specific instruction, the specific phrasing used was that he wanted the version of the painting that was rolled out on the entryway where they are killing babies.
Well, they're killing babies. I mean, what do you even do with a sentence like that?
Well, no, we have to be fair. The hosts in the source material debate this, and they land on the most likely explanation, which is that it's a grammatical error.
Okay, so a clumsy sentence.
A very clumsy sentence. The person writing the email probably meant the painting which depicts the killing of babies, because that is the subject of the artwork.
Right. That makes rational sense. He's talking about the subject of the art.
It's the most charitable reading, but the source still highlights it as a significant echo. Even if it's just about the art, you have to ask, why is a man accused of horrific crimes against children obsessed with collecting art that graphically depicts the mass slaughter of infants? It points to a deep moral sickness, a culture that revels in this kind of imagery.
And the phrasing itself, where they are killing babies, it feels coded.
It does. It has echoes of the strange coded language found in other political scandals, like the Podesta emails with all the references to pizza and hot dogs. It just feels off. It feels like a glimpse into a very, very dark world.
It's deeply unsettling no matter how you interpret it. Okay, on to anomaly #3. And this one, to me, feels like a potential smoking gun for an official cover-up. The wiped hard drives.
This comes directly from an FBI interview document, so it's on the record. It states that after Epstein's supposed death, an FBI agent went to the jail, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, and removed the DVR drives.
Okay, that seems like standard procedure. You secure the video evidence of what happened in and around the cell.
Exactly. You'd think that footage would be the most valuable piece of evidence in the entire case. But then, a witness later told the FBI that in order to rebuild the DVR system at the jail, they had to replace the hard drives that the FBI had taken.
Okay.
And this witness claimed that they knew that the act of replacing the drives would wipe the system. It would delete all the footage.
Wait. Pause. That makes absolutely zero technological sense.
No.
I mean, I'm not a computer engineer, but I know that if I unplug the hard drive from my laptop and plug in a new one, the data on the old drive doesn't just vanish into thin air. That's not how memory works.
That is precisely the source's critique. It is technologically nonsensical. Data on a hard drive is not volatile like that. It doesn't just disappear. And even if there were some bizarre 1 in a billion technical reason for it, why would the FBI allow the primary evidence in the death of the most high-profile prisoner in the world to be destroyed?
You wouldn't, unless you wanted it destroyed.
The source argues it looks like a deliberate, facilitated destruction of evidence regarding the suicide or murder. It's just too convenient. Oops, sorry, we tried to fix the machine, and we accidentally deleted the only video of the most important event that ever happened here. It's an insult to our intelligence.
Okay, so you have panicked acid orders, grotesque artwork, and mysteriously wiped hard drives. This all leads to the biggest, most controversial question of all, Section 4. Is Epstein alive?
All right. And usually, when this question comes up, it's immediately dismissed as a conspiracy theory.
You're in tinfoil hat territory.
Exactly. But the source takes a completely different approach here. They don't look at grainy photos or supposed sightings. They use cold, hard logic. They use game theory.
So walk us through this. This isn't about physical evidence. It's about the incentives on the game board.
It's all about the incentives. You have to identify the players and their most rational moves. The main players in this game are Epstein himself and what we can call the clients, the incredibly powerful people he had blackmail material on.
The people on his list.
The people on his list. Now, what was Epstein's primary asset? It wasn't money. It was compromat, blackmail, dirt on kings, princes, presidents, scientists, billionaires. In the world of intelligence, that kind of material is the ultimate form of power.
And that power doesn't just disappear when you get arrested.
It becomes even more critical. Now, the source argues that Epstein was many things, but he was not stupid. He was a master of strategy and leverage. He knew that the moment he was captured, he became a massive liability. He knew powerful people would want him silenced permanently.
So he would have had an insurance policy.
The only logical move for a player in his position is to have an insurance policy. The classic dead man switch.
Can you explain that for anyone who might not know the term?
The dead man switch is an automated system. The idea is if you die, or if you fail to check in at a certain time, say every 12 hours, all of your most damaging information is automatically released to the world. It goes to every major news outlet, to WikiLeaks, it goes everywhere.
So the message is, if I die, everyone goes down with me.
Precisely. It fundamentally changes the incentives of the other players. If Epstein has a credible dead man switch, the powerful people he has dirt on cannot kill him. If they do, they trigger the switch and their own ruin is guaranteed.
Okay, so that takes murder off the table as a rational move for the clients. What about the official story, suicide?
The source argues that suicide also makes no strategic sense for Epstein. Why would you kill yourself when you were holding the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card?
He cut a deal before.
He'd cut that infamous sweetheart deal in Florida. With the level of compromat he supposedly had on global elites, he could have negotiated anything. Let me go or I expose the next 10 most powerful people in your country. Suicide is the act of throwing away your single greatest piece of leverage. It's an irrational move for a player like him.
So if murder is too risky for the elites because of the switch, and suicide is an irrational move for Epstein because he loses his leverage, what's left on the game board?
There's only one move left that benefits the most powerful players. Extraction.
Extraction, you mean faking his death?
The source concludes that the most logical outcome, the Nash equilibrium of this particular game, was for the powerful entities, intelligence agencies, the global elite, to stage his death and get him out.
And faking his death solves everyone's problem.
It solves their problem perfectly. Think it through. If they extract him and keep him alive somewhere secure, like a permanent, very comfortable witness protection program, the dead man's switch is never triggered because he's alive. He can keep resetting the clock.
So the secrets stay buried.
The secrets stay buried. But to the public, he's dead. The outrage dies down. The investigations eventually stop. The clients are safe. Epstein gets to live, albeit in some kind of gilded cage. It's the only move where the house wins and the public is left in the dark.
But the level of coordination that would require, I mean, you're talking about the jail guards, the coroners, the FBI agents who took the drives. Everyone would have to be in on it.
Or you're just talking about a system where the people at the very top have that kind of reach. If your blackmail material can compromise presidents and princes, you can probably find a way to influence a medical examiner's report.
Wow.
And the source makes a crucial point here. We've seen zero public evidence that the FBI ever followed up on any of these anomalies.
Right. Did they investigate the acid? Did they try to decode the emails?
We don't know. They mentioned other weird codes in the emails, like strained references to keeping beef jerky on ice and frozen tuna. The source implies these are almost certainly codes for something else. But the public, the podcasters, the citizen journalists, are the ones left trying to piece it all together with incomplete data because the official investigators have seemingly just moved on.
It paints a picture of a world where the reality we're shown is just a play. It's a stage production.
Which brings us right back to Orwell, doesn't it? If the state can rewrite the dictionary, if they can tell you a riot is an act of peace, if they can tell you a man is a woman, then telling you a living man is dead is just another Tuesday.
So what do we do with this? This is all so bleak. After laying all this out, the source doesn't just leave us in this pit of despair. They do offer some ways to push back. Section 5, reclaiming reality.
Right. They offer countermeasures, and the first one is about the importance of accurate personal memory. The source brings up a project they're involved with called COVID-era stories.
And the goal of that is to just document what people went through during the pandemic.
Exactly. The idea is to create a massive public archive of individual experiences. The coercion, the lockdowns, the confusion, the personal stories, before the official narrative completely solidifies. Before the Orwellian memory holing begins, and we're all told a different version of what happened.
It's about writing our own history before someone else writes it for us.
It's about anchoring reality in lived experience. And the other countermeasure they discuss is on the educational front. They bring up a place called Ralston College.
What's the story with Ralston? What makes it different?
The source holds it up as a positive alternative to the current university system, which they see as largely captured by the kind of jargon and ideology we talked about earlier. Ralston is described as immersive, focused on primary texts, learning Greek, understanding Western civilization.
So going back to the fundamentals.
They call it a soul-enabling education, one that prioritizes the search for truth and the human experience over vague, cloaking language. It's an attempt to build an institution that is resistant to Newspeak.
It really feels like the battle line is being drawn over the very nature of perception. From the micro level of a single weird phrase like gun person, all the way up to the macro level of fake suicides and rewritten encyclopedias.
That is the synthesis. The struggle isn't left versus right anymore. It's about the ability to perceive what is real versus what you are being told is real. If you lose that faculty, you lose everything. You just become a pawn in someone else's game.
Well, this has been incredibly heavy, but also incredibly important, I think. Let's try to wrap this up. We've taken a journey from the linguistic absurdity of a Nobel Prize for riots all the way to the cold, terrifying logic of an undead Jeffrey Epstein.
It's a trip through the looking glass for sure.
Right.
But if there's one takeaway, it's that concept we started with. Predator inspection. Don't look away from the things that don't make sense. When the language gets weird, lean in. When the official story defies physics or basic logic, you have to look closer.
I want to leave our listeners with one final provocative thought that came out of this. It's built on that game theory idea that the Epstein files are still being used as leverage today.
The Game of Thrones theory.
Right. If that theory is true, and Epstein is either gone or hidden, but the blackmail files were never released and are now in the hands of some other power.
It raises what might be the single most important question of our time.
Who is making decisions on the world stage right now? Decisions about war, about the economy, about your health, about your life, not because they believe it's the right thing to do, but because they know their name is sitting in a redacted file somewhere, and they are terrified of that black bar being removed.
And more importantly, who is holding that file? Who has their finger on the button? That's the real power now.
That's the question that's going to keep me up tonight.
It should keep all of us up.
Until next time, keep your eyes open and your dictionary handy. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Stay curious.